They pulled Tua yesterday, and initially,
is it Fitzmagic time?
well, so this is the thing though. So this is my issue that I have with this, because Flores, right? He pulls Tua. Initially, they say, well, oh man, maybe it has to be because of injury, man. He's getting banged up in the game, man, but he's not playing well either. After the game, Flores says it was performance based, but then he also says
we're going
Tua's
back.
Gonna be go back to it. So I'm just like, when you play that game with these quarterbacks, people forget that these are still humans. That still affects them. Imagine if you're at work and one day you're promoted, one day you're fired, then you're promoted again. That's going to get to you. That's going to mess with you mentally. That's the only thing, man. When you start doing that with young quarterbacks, with Fitzmagic is different. Fitz has been in this league forever. He's handled these situations. He's been in it. It's not new to him. With young quarterbacks, man, with young players in general, you just don't know how they're going to respond to that. We've seen a scenario with Josh Rosen, how, you see his confidence is shot. It just depends, man. Some people handle it better than others, but it's dicey when you play that game back and forth. And that was my biggest reason why, a couple weeks ago when they were talking about making the move, I'm like, I personally wouldn't do that until I'm 1,000% sure that this is what I want to do, because you don't, that now think about how that looks. If you're in that locker room, you're looking at Tua right now, or if you're Tua, do you believe in your abilities when you know for a fact they pulled you because of bad play? It's like, dang, are you going to pull me again if I play bad again? Because you didn't pull me because I was getting hurt. You said it was performance-based. So if I play bad again, are you going to pull me? If I throw 2 picks, are you going to pull me? Am I looking over my shoulder now? Those are the things that start to creep in, man. And that's not a recipe for success.
That's a fair point. I remember us talking about the whole Burrow situation too, about, man, should they have kept Dalton? Should they be sitting him out too? And we laid out the scenarios because the situation that was weird about it was him being a number 1 pick.
Yes.
So you never
made it different.
Yeah, it made it different. It's like, all right, you're picking him number 1, because like Mahomes was different with Kansas City from the standpoint that Kansas City was still good. I think they made the playoffs.
They made the playoffs. Yeah.
And Mahomes was the 15th pick, like you knew going in.
Remember, they had just went to the AFC Championship game either that year or the year before. Or no, they had the 2 seed. We beat them in the divisional round. Actually, that would have been 17, and they made the switch in 18. So
we laid out all the scenarios where, all right, this is kind of going with history, where you draft Burrow, you get rid of the old quarterback, and you just you let it happen. We also
said that Alex Smith, he wasn't homegrown there either. He came through.
Oh, true. Where it was like, this is Dalton's team.
Dalton, they drafted him. He was their guy. Second contract and everything.
Yeah, it'd be different if they had Fitzpatrick up with Cincy, right?
Yes.
Where they could have let him maybe play 5 or 6 games or play the season, depending on how your line's looking. And you're like, man, do we really want to put Burrow into this?
Absolutely, man.
But yeah, there's a lot that goes in, because you got to think the hype, the just re-energize the fans and stuff with your number 1 pick.
But we felt like it wasn't necessary, because from a money standpoint, they could afford him and still not have any issues from a cap standpoint. So if you can afford to have him even as a high-end backup, why not? You know what I mean? Like, you already had the familiarity and stuff like that. My only thing that I could think of is if
you're talking about having Dalton as a backup. Yeah.
Cincy. The only thing I could think of is if Cincy just clearly wanted to say, you know what, we want to make it where it's a fresh start, and Burrow doesn't have to worry about even the thought of going back to Dalton. Yeah, that could have been the other thing.
Because that's the thing he has over Tua, where he had that bad game against Baltimore. There's no thought of bringing in someone else.
Right.
Yeah.
Whereas
they might have at the end of the game just to save him from injury or something.
But never, you never had to look in that room and say, this guy is good enough to play with me. Tua, when he looks at Fitzpatrick, he's like, Fitz can ball, but Fitz is still going to turn the ball over late in the games. Burrow looked in that room. Burrow didn't have anyone to look around. He's not worried about, can this guy come and take my spot? Whereas with Fitz, it's like, are you getting Fitz magic or are you going to get Fitzpatrick? If you get Fitz magic, man, you might be sitting on the sideline for 7-8. And literally, he showed Fitz magic a little bit yesterday. And then Fitzpatrick showed him at the end of it. But that's who he is. But if you catch him in a game where he's good for 3 or 4, where he'll just be hot, man, that could kill your confidence if you're to it, man.
Yeah.
And this is my thing, too, with Flores. Now that I think about it a little bit more, we've seen this before with him. Josh Rosen last year. Remember, they pulled Fitzpatrick.
Did they start with Rosen?
Absolutely. I want to say they started with Rosen, pulled him, and then had Fitz playing, and then they put Rosen back in, and then pulled him again later in the year. So this isn't the first time that we've seen him play the quarterback carousel with Fitzpatrick going back and forth with these other quarterbacks. He definitely did that last year. I definitely remember that, because I said, man, when they went to Rosen, I'm like, all right, he's going to finally get opportunity. And I think it was a 1 or 2 game sample. He got banged up one game. I remember getting hit a lot, and they just, all right, switched back out, put Fitz in, and then we never saw Rosen again. So for me, I'm just like, so this is the thing too, as much as I talk about competition, right? And I love competition. I love it at quarterback preseason, off season. When it's during the season, I don't want to be switching my quarterback. That's like switching your head coach. That's like switching your middle linebacker. Like, in certain positions, you don't want to be rotating those guys in and out. So I don't want to have to, well, these 2 games I'm going with this guy. Next game I'm going with that guy. Like, no. If you want to play that game, you do that during training camp. You do that all season. You let them compete, battle out, however you want to do it. Once the season gets here, though, man, you got to have your one guy that you roll with and commit with, unless it's an injury or it's something catastrophic where he's just out of control.
2 or 3 games really bad.
Yeah, but if that's not the case, man, you can't flip-flop these guys like that, man.
Well, because that was the thing last year. Do you remember us talking about Mason and Duck?
Yeah.
I mean, it was the Cleveland game. He had the 4 picks. I think even at that point, we were like, all right, let's just wait and see. Because once you go to Duck, you're not going back.
Right.
But then he had the really bad Bengals first half. It's like, we need to win this game somehow, some way.
So then we switched.
Duck came in.
Yeah.
And then you want to stick with Duck for the 3 games. And it was just a disaster.
But then when Duck started playing bad, then they tried to switch back to Mason. Then Mason gets hurt. And it was a cluster, man. Like, you can't do that with your quarterbacks, man. It's a recipe for disaster. So, and I speak from personal experience. In Buffalo, we did that, man. Those 4 years, between Trent Edwards being traded, Fitzpatrick being there for, I think, 2 years, and then him being gone, we did that quarterback carousel where literally, man, over 16 games, you start 4 or 5 different quarterbacks. That's a recipe for disaster. As good as we were defensively, as good as we were on special teams, that was the Achilles heel. It was like, you don't know who's going to be the quarterback, and each week you're trying to, all right, well, this is his strength and limitation. That's his strength and limitations. All right, so we're going to change the playbook for this guy this week. All right, we're going to go short and intermediate passing. Oh, okay, this guy's a deep ball threat. All right, we're going chunk plays this week. All right, these guys, he can't throw either. All right, we're going to run the ball this week. And he's like, bro, this is terrible. Like, we cannot keep winning like this, man. And that was the issue, man. So when you start doing that, man, just know, like, long term, and we saw it last year, like you said, with Mason and Duck, it's a recipe for disaster. Eventually, it's going to catch up to you, man.
It's just a bad situation to be in. It's a lose-lose kind of whatever you do, because if you do stick with the guy who keeps playing bad, your locker room's like, all right, this is the best we got. Let's try to do something here. Right. But then you do something, it's like, all right, we got to go back. What the hell? No
question, man.
It's just lose-lose.
This segment was brought to you by DraftKings Sportsbook, America's top-rated sports booking app. And we know sports booking isn't allowed everywhere. We know this. But we do know fantasy football is, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of people love fantasy football. And a lot of people love the opportunity to make some money. So what if I told you that DraftKings has combined with fantasy football, and they have a fantasy football app where they're giving out $1 million worth of prizes every week? I mean, that sounds pretty good, right?
Sounds amazing.
I agree. And you know me, I was in retirement. You were in retirement. We weren't even fantasy football guys. When they broke out this deal, along with the promo code Moats, giving us up to $1,000 in deposit bonus money, we both came out of retirement. We said, look, take our jerseys out the rafters. We're coming back, man. We are coming back. So what are you waiting on, man? Make sure you download the DraftKings Sportsbook app or download DraftKings Fantasy Football app. Use the promo code Moats and go out there and get that opportunity to make a little money.